method we use. And a lot of times in maths, you would find that you could solve a particular problem using 2 or 3 or 4 different methods, but the final answer is always the same. That's not the case here. So because the question omits specific information regarding the numbering of the tins, the actual answer to this question could be anything from 1 to, it could be anything, because let me say for some reason Darren...
So the story is about this horrific math exam dominated social media. In fact, there was a support group for those who didn't know about how the math question came about. Now, this video got my attention because Mr. Hugh, I got it. Christian Hume is on the Morning Brew. Now, he is a math and stats expert. He's an SCA math teacher. We're talking about SCA math. And a lot of times people are looking at the questions, and there was a whole discussion whether or not it's appropriate. We know you never really know maths. I mean, for God's sakes, do you really know prime, even, mixed all of these terms, your angles? Do you really use it after the exam? No, trust me. I reached all the way to an MBA and you don't use it. But it's what you're tested on. Was the question badly worded? And was it a particularly difficult exam? Christian, good morning. How are you?
Morning, Hema, morning to everybody, Trinidad and Tobago.
Was it an extremely hard math exam? Was it more difficult than normal?
Okay, let me just correct one thing. I am not an SCA teacher. I do maths at CSEC level, privately, and add maths as well. What happened is that somebody, knowing what I do, they send the question to me on WhatsApp. I didn't really take it on initially.
How many people told you about the question after?
Well, I started seeing people tagging me in the question, about 3 or 4. So then I said, okay, let me go and see what this thing is about. So I saw it on Facebook. And then I read the question and I said, okay, something missing here, something wrong. But then I saw a solution by a guy called George Elias, and he said that the answer was 16. Mm-hmm. And it made sense. But then my solution friend Marley's from Mali, she messaged me in my WhatsApp, and we had a little back and forth. And she was insisting to me that the answer could have been 1. So I said, no, that doesn't make sense. And then I listened to her a little bit, and I said, okay, you have a point. And that was the moment when I realized that the solution to the problem depended on a handful of assumptions.
So it's a poorly worded question?
I would say so, yes, I would say so.
Okay, I know we have the questions. We're going to pull the question up. This is the question that has everyone talking. This is an example of it. So Darren filled boxes with tins of orange juice and numbered the boxes in order in which they were filled. He packed the 496th tin in box 21 and then stopped for lunch. Box 21 was not completely filled. How many tins were in box 21? And also the suggested version. So let's go with that. Why is that so difficult?
Well, you see, mathematics is an exact science, all right? There's no room for assumption in a mathematics exam, right? It's all, to me personally, it's about standards. So for example, if you're writing a love letter to your girlfriend, it's okay, you might make a spelling mistake or 2, she might find it cute. But if you're putting up a sign on the highway, then spelling errors are not allowed, right? It might be okay to have some potholes in the road and a dirt track in a village somewhere. But once you get onto the main road, once you get onto the highway, then that is out of the question. So for me, while you have room for loosely worded questions in a class debate or a conversation in the house, once you get to the point of putting it on an exam that so many thousands of children are doing, then there's absolutely no room to leave open-ended things where people could assume or not assume.
What is the correct answer?
The correct answer, depending on if you assume certain things, is 16.
I would never get that right, first of all. Okay, for a child between the age of 11 to 12 plus, is that an appropriate question to test your ability to do arithmetic?
If the question is properly worded, I wouldn't have a problem with it being appropriate or not, right? To me, the question is not so much whether the question is hard or whether it is appropriate. There's always room for hard questions in an exam, but the question has to be a proper question.
Everyone complained about the math exam. Was it particularly difficult from what you see?
No. From what I gathered when I looked at it, it seemed to be like any other maths exam. You had a range of questions. Some would be easy, some would be, let me say, mid-range, and then you would have some that would be a little tricky, a little more difficult, and those are usually coming down to the end of the exam. And that is fine, nothing wrong with that, nothing wrong with that.
The minister said that, I see parents are clamoring for changes. They said, this exam was so hard, people didn't finish on time. And the minister said, it's an exam. There must be a level of difficulty. I know that I'm asking you ad math teachers, so I don't expect any sort of, pity here, considering that I dropped ad math after 2 classes. But do you think that the math exam itself is appropriate for students of that age? Should we be expecting, should it be to that level? People are a little confused as to what they expect.
Well, it is not so much, okay, from the time you talk about the level of an exam, the next question that automatically begs itself is your preparation for the exam.
Do you think they had enough time to prepare? The minister made some changes to the syllabus. He said there was adequate time and teachers were trained on this new, whatever changes they made.
I don't want to make a definitive comment on that because I really am not familiar with the SCA syllabus. I only got into this whole thing because...
When people started tagging you and said, figure this out first.
Yes, that is how I got into it. Yeah.
But, Christian, when you look at the exam, you say it's not difficult. You obviously know when you teach math to students who have reached a form where they are doing CSEC and they're doing ad math, they're expected to have a basic foundation. Mm-hmm. Was that exam any different to what you expect 10 to 12-year-olds to be facing?
Okay, even if the question was perfectly worded, this would definitely fall towards the more difficult end of the scale, even for an 11 or 12-year-old. And yes, this question might require a little more time, but then again, the flip side of that is if the question is properly worded, some students might get through it a little faster simply because they don't have to wonder if the boxes are the same size or if the tins are the same size or how this tin became the 496 tin.
That's so much interpretation for something that's a pure science.
But if you leave the information out, yeah, you would definitely have to interpret stuff.
What advice do you have for the Minister of Education and those writing the next SCA exam?
Okay, I don't want to get...
No politics. Let's just give some advice.
All right, generally speaking, to all the powers that be, whoever they may be, to me it's about standards at all levels. Standards in setting the question, standards in communicating the information in the question, and definitely standards in preparing the students for the exam, and that is probably the most difficult part of it all.
I would go with 16 as the answer, but that's an educated guess there. But when I looked at the question, but thank you so much for joining us this morning, Christian, to give your views. You can check out his website, and maybe you can challenge yourself. I can tell you, honestly, I didn't write GMAT just because they had so much math and the components in it. We take a short break, we'll come back, we'll have more for you.